We'll start this morning with the pledge. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America,
and to the republic
one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good morning, everybody.
Morning.
Morning. Good morning, good morning.
Right. Ryan and Al, do you prefer are you hearing okay, or should we use the microphone?
I'm hearing okay right now.
Al?
Should be on.
So you can hear better. So we're gonna start off with buying some happy bucks. So, Jerry?
Well, I'm putting in the lunch because I forgot my pen, but I got one, so there's $1 fine for not having a pen, and then another $1, and I'm glad to see Chris here. Even though, so on his self-care day, he came in and had a Pride and Promise Foundation meeting, so that's that was good. That was nice of you to do that. So, and just happy and fine. So, anybody else? Okay.
A couple of happy holidays in York City last week at my nephew's wedding, and got to go up to Rhinebeck, New York, which is upstate. It's a real pretty area. Leisure changed, and my wife and I crossed the Poughkeepsie Bridge, talking about exercise. And was actually during the nor'easter that went through there. The winds were like 40, 50 miles an hour. Poughkeepsie Bridge is there's a lot of couple Poughkeepsie bridges, but this is a old railroad bridge that they turned into a big sidewalk, basically, and about 1.5 miles long across the Hudson River. It was challenging with the wind blowing. It was fun.
I'm just gonna throw in a happy buck because glad to see Carolyn looking so good today.
Anyone else with happy bucks or fines this morning?
This meeting was in Florida, did another bike event. Oh, sorry. Spent, did a 8-day road trip in Florida. We did the old person route, 3 days down there, 3 days there, and 3 days back. Saw a lot of incredible things, great people. The old person. Yeah, well, it takes 3 days to drive to Florida. I think it was a great trip. Met a good Rotary, a member of my bike federation, at a restaurant with the bike rides. It was a great time. Okay, hold on just a
I
moment.
don't know what the government said. This act. And I don't quite understand why, but it's your life.
Very good.
Very nice. Anyone else this morning over on that side? Okay. All right.
Forgot to wear my pen. Do we have no, I don't want to. I got half a dozen on my desk. Do we have a profit margin built into the sale of those pens?
I don't know.
Executive
secretary.
I think right now they're being given
I think right now they are being given away. Yes. So you want
one of your
back?
unless you're hot.
I've got some on my shelves in the corner.
If anybody who's a past governor and doesn't have a pen ought to get fined, or because we got plenty of.
Patricia cleaned down my Rotary chest. She said, "What do you do with all those pens?" I said, "Oh, why?" Right, from my teen year as governor.
Leftovers, you could sell them back to Russell Hampton. There's some.
Sure.
Anyone else?
There, I got $1. This is a prelim to my stepdaughter getting married on Saturday.
Oh, nice.
Very good. Anybody else?
What are we doing? Fine.
Fines and happy bucks.
Oh, fines and happy bucks. Well,
My goodness, my goodness, my goodness.
tomorrow, we are celebrating our 49th anniversary.
Happy anniversary. Good. Anybody else? We're too close to the airport for me to say, hi, Jack. So I'll say, good morning, Jack. No, yeah, and that's bad. That was a bad one. So.
Yeah, that's at least $1.
That's a ton, right?
It is, Ruth, oh, Jack, do you want some change? No. Okay. All right, I'm gonna take a little bit of my sergeant at arms duty here and kind of regrettably step on the toes of our foundation chair. I went to a district leadership retreat on Friday. And I was asked specifically by Governor Margie to present a couple of awards to two of our members, and it's the Paul Harris Society Award, and that is a pledge of $1,000 to the foundation per year. And Bob, I'm sorry I'm stepping on your toes, but you are one of the pin receivers, so that's why I decided not to ask you to give one to yourself. And Mitch Wilson is the other. So congratulations, gentlemen. And Tom, you remember I tried to tell the board yesterday the awards that we.
I think I have some in the car. I'll bring it in.
Okay, and I know we got the Century Award and we got the highest per capita. And
Highest Mr. Governor count.
the highest Mr. Governor count and the highest, didn't we? The highest money raised for the foundation. this year?
We did the highest dollar amount for the foundation, which is pretty amazing. We got the highest dollar amount for the district, which is pretty awesome because we're not the largest in membership by far and the largest per capita. We pretty much blew everybody away. And they got tired of my superior dance up there, but no, it really was great. I'm very proud of all of you.
I got tired of holding his hand while he was doing his dance.
Thank you, Jerry. I just have two more things before we turn over to the speaker. One is just a reminder, it's matching month for the foundation. This is traditionally our month that we match points for any donations to the foundation. And the second thing is just a reminder, I think it was in the bulletin. Next week, we are not meeting here. We're meeting at Dave Muller's company, Thompson Supply on Woodson, to get the dictionaries ready. They're in. So those will be coming, or we're going to try to get those ready. We're doing third grade and fourth grade, so we've got a lot of work to do. So we'll meet there next Wednesday at 7 o'clock.
Do they know here? Yes.
Yes, yeah, and also FYI, to update, the coach should be in this week.
To Ritenour.
Being delivered directly to Ritenour. It said 96 coats.
96, yes.
96 coats. So it's turning cold, so it's good timing for that. All right. Oh yeah, that's right.
Old Newsboys Day is resuming. It's Thursday, November 18th. So I have a sign-up sheet with two shifts, one from 6:30 to 7:30, and the other is 7:30 to 8:30. So anybody can sign up and help. Greatly appreciate it.
Bill, do you want to introduce or?
Right ahead.
Okay.
Right ahead.
Okay. Well, our speaker today is Chris Kilbride from Ritenour, and I'm not even sure what you're going to talk about, Chris. I just know you're coming. So,
All right, thanks, Brian.
morning, everybody.
So I've got a couple of videos. Is that possible here?
Yeah, let's see if we can, how we can do this.
Have to, Is there any way you could email it to me real quick and then I can?
Perfect. Start to the left.
And it's own mercy, yeah, and the mercy of everybody else. I'm not looking over your shoulder. So, if they're good, I can pull those up.
Yeah, if you just go to YouTube, Ritenour schools.
Oh, shoot, that's an easy one. I thought you meant videos. I'm being sarcastic.
Yeah.
Yeah, give me just a minute to pull it up. The microphone's back down there. I turned it off, but it'll be. Come on.
Yeah, in December. I think second.
Okay. Which ones do you want?
Just click on the Ritenour schools. Okay, so that's where we are. I'm
Yep.
just gonna click through a handful of these.
Okay, so what I'm gonna do is I'll go into share screen so that everybody, they can see it and it'll be part of the, not you, me. Sound, there. All right, sir, you're up and running.
All right, thank you. Well, good morning.
Morning.
Supposed to be on.
Morning, everybody. Happy to be here with you this morning. I do this about once a year. I know that Julie Hahn has come out and spoken to the group not too long ago. I know that Mike is a part of this club and comes on a pretty regular basis. So just happy to stay partnered with you in support of every Ritenour student every day. So there's been a whole lot of exposure lately, not necessarily for always good reasons. This has been, as you've maybe seen in the news over the weekend, without a doubt, the most challenging of my 10 years as superintendent. It's my 23rd year in Ritenour. Came to the district in 1999 as a teacher at Hake. So taught for 4 years at Hake when Karen Bradley was the principal. Karen Bradley hired me, and I worked with Jan Cordes and Roger Brock and a number of great people at Hake. And then after my 4th year at Hake, I had the honor of working with Jack Williams for 2 years. And as I told Jack, I kind of grew up as a leader when I was the director of professional development, working closely with Jack and Tim Stryker and Diane Schoonover and Carolyn Lundhauser and the team that Jack had. And then from professional development, I went to Kratz Elementary for 4 years, was the assistant principal at Kratz, and then moved from Kratz to Booter. I was at Booter for 5 years as principal. And then in 2012, I made the jump from the Booter principalship to the superintendency. And now 10 years later, my 10th year as superintendent, time is just absolutely flown. So loved every day of my job, but I'll tell you the days have been quite challenging this year. So that's what I want to talk a little bit about this morning, is some of the challenge that we're facing this year and some of the strategies that we've stood up as a way to deal with some of the struggles of students and families returning to in-person learning. So just a little bit of context and looking back, it was March 17th. It was right around St. Patrick's Day of 2020 when it became clear that the pandemic was going to be a significant issue for us in schools. That Sunday before was called into a meeting with Sam Page and Sam Page's team in Clayton. And there's been an interesting relationship between schools and the St. Louis County Department of Health, because so much around COVID and the pandemic in schools is very political. And I say that because in that meeting in Dr. Page's office, it was clear that people were struggling to make a decision about calling off school. And so what that looked like on the 14th of March, 2020, on a Sunday afternoon, was a group of about 10 superintendents, me being one of them, saying at this point, we need to close schools. We don't know for how long, but we know for the safety of students and staff, it's time to call schools. And then at that point, Spring Schmidt, who was the acting in the County Department of Health, will support you in doing that. So for the next 18 months, we had almost 3,000 Ritenour kids who were virtual learners, 2,770 to be exact. were fully virtual from April 9th, I think it was, when we returned, all the way up until the 19th of January this past year, when we had all students returning into a hybrid model. It wasn't until April, and that was 2 days a week of in person. It wasn't until April 9th of this past year, so what is that, about 7-8 months ago, when our kids came back to 4 days of in-person learning. We were monitoring the rate of spread of the pandemic all the way throughout. Even right now, as of this week, and Dr. LaChance and Ms. Hahn, they put out our COVID dashboard every Friday afternoon. We have about 65 middle school students quarantined right now. We have district-wide between students and staff, we have about 15 positive cases, and that number fluctuates up and down. The numbers that we were looking to back last year, we had in the hundreds of staff and students quarantined at some times. So this year, people are struggling to come back in person. We saw at the elementary level, a lot of our students that chose virtual learning, the data was somewhat positive around our virtual learners. We saw at the high school that the students that were fully virtual, the data was not positive at all. What that meant for a lot of our Ritenour high school kids, knowing that our students, a lot of them have to play a role in supporting their families, supporting mom and dad, grandma, aunts and uncles. A lot of our kids chose to go to work. We had alternate virtual schedules so that we knew that was going to be a factor. We could try to work around that. But even with that, a lot of kids were choosing work over school. So then there were some gaps that were created. We went from 2,770 students fully virtual last year to this year we have 326. So small number of students fully virtual, that's by design. We're working to build up our Ritenour Virtual Academy so that it's sustainable, so that within the next 5 years, as school choice and charters expand, we want to make sure that we've got a vehicle in Ritenour that we can market to other school districts. There's a lot of districts that are standing up virtual options. The biggest one is called Launch, and it's Springfield, Missouri Public Schools. Has about 20 or 30,000 students across the state of Missouri that are learning with Springfield, Missouri teachers online all day. We've got a Ritenour Virtual Academy vehicle that could be that exact thing if we need to roll it out there. So I want to share a couple of videos that talk about some of the challenges we're facing with all of the students coming back in person and some of the work that we're doing to ease that transition. I can take questions at any point too.
Do you have any space Springfield for the launch?
We do, and so what that looks like is for every student who takes a launch class, it's $275 per class. And so now across the state of Missouri, there's a thing called MOCAP, it's Missouri Course Access Program. It's a virtual charters system. Launch is one of the providers that are available. Now, any family in Missouri, doesn't matter which of the 520 public school districts the family resides in, they can say, I want virtual for my child, and the home district has to pay for it. So if the family chooses Launch, it's $275. Yeah, it is, but as compared to, so as a part of this new Missouri virtual model, we have to pay up to the state adequacy target. So that's the Missouri Foundation formula. State adequacy target, it's the top 50 school districts in Missouri, and it's the average of what they spend per pupil. And based on the formula, a district can spend no less to educate a child than that state adequacy target. It's about $6,500. So with this virtual option, we would have to pay up to $6,500 a year for these virtual options. And so of the 9 providers that are in MOCAP, how much do you think it costs a year for one of these virtual providers? $6,499, right? Except for Launch. Launch is about half of that. And so the marketing that Springfield Public is doing is they're saying, here's a less costly option to meet MOCAP criteria.
Are those others for profit that are providing?
They are a lot of I would say about half are for-profit national companies. A lot of them are run out of either the states of Florida or Texas. You've got the largest educational, Florida, Texas, California, a lot of retired teachers that are being brought back into these for-profit companies to teach kids. So we put together a video series of a handful of videos to make families and to make the community aware of some of the resources and some of the services that we have, because it is about the academic learning of every student every day, but it's about the wraparound services. So I heard about coats, 96 coats come to Ritenour. You're going to hear a little bit about the Ritenour Co-Care food pantry and the services that are provided there. We are not a resource poor district. We've got a significant number of resources available for families. We just need to make sure that people are aware of them. So I'm going to start by sharing a video from our district social workers.
Social workers here at school provided a safe space for our kids to come and take a break, share their feelings, get away from the stresses of school and home life. And then also I support families and connect them to resources here at Ritenour. We have a lot of resources within our school district, and also connect them with resources in the community for their basic needs.
So a lot of the work that I do currently is a lot of trauma work. So I am doing a lot of trauma therapy with kids here at the International Welcome Center and other schools, as well as trauma work with parents. I do a lot of the outreach between the families and the community supports, so working with the food pantry here in Ritenour School District, or with the English classes for adults, just all of those connections and supports.
The pandemic has definitely raised a number of additional issues. We've tried to connect people with resources in regards to financial resources, assistance with rent, access to food, navigating technology as that's become more of a need for both the students as well as parents to engage with the schools, and then just other community resources. With the weather turning colder, families need to remember to dress their children in layers, so definitely a long sleeve shirt, a hoodie or sweatshirt, and a coat if possible. We're going to go outside as much as possible, especially for our young ones for recess. If you're in need of any of these clothing or coats, you can definitely contact us, your school, or me directly, and we can get something for your student. Families can get in touch with me or any Ritenour social worker by contacting their school. Their counselor, teacher, or administrator should have our direct Ritenour cell phone numbers, or can contact us through email or visit us at the school if needed.
So what I'd like to talk about now is in the budget this year, I talked about not being a resource poor district.
Good evening. I suppose you're all wondering what schmuck like me is doing.
So that's Mervell Sellers. And so I don't know, he's a 1970s-ish grad, was inducted into the Hall of Fame. He's a fiction writer, writes a bunch of suspense novels. Probably one of the best Hall of Fame speeches that I've ever heard.
You should go out and take a look at it, and
I'll put the link in the.
if you, especially those people that think bullying is a brand new problem in school.
I'm gonna jump. Okay, let's see here. If I can jump back. There we are. So one of the things we're doing also in Ritenour is working to be more
Mi nombre es Marta Piñones, soy una psicóloga bilingüe aquí de la escuela
We've got the fastest growing EL population.
de Ritenour, las escuelas de Ritenour School District. Yo trabajo primariamente aquí en el sitio del International Welcome Center, pero también trabajo con todos los estudiantes secundarios del distrito, dando terapias, igualmente como asistencia a los papás. Parte de mi trabajo es apoyar a todos los estudiantes y sus familias, entonces yo Doy consejería individualmente de grupo también para estudiantes y también sus familias. También como psicóloga del distrito ayudo con comunicaciones de otros apoyos del alrededor de aquí, del distrito. Creo que nuestro puesto que de mí y de Yuri, que es nuevo este año, es muy importante para las familias que hablan español del distrito. Nuestro número está creciendo, entonces es bueno tener a alguien.
So this is Martha and then Judy. Judy's, there are two new social workers in Ritenour, a real focus on targeting and hiring bilingual staff members. And so that's Dr. LaChance in the Human Resources Department that's doing that work. Got the fastest growing EL population in the region. Almost 21.5% of our students are English language learners in the district. So that's about 1,200 students out of our 6,300 students are English language learners.
Yeah, anticipate Afghanistan. Yeah, anticipate Afghanistan.
So we're an ambassador district through Mosaic, and we've been in conversation with Mosaic. We do believe, not specifically targeted to the Ritenour School District, but with the estimated 100 Afghani students that are going to be coming to the St. Louis region, there's 2 schools for refugees. There's the Naheed Chapman New American Academy in St. Louis Public. And then there's us at the International Welcome Center that we started 6 years ago with HAIC. So these 100 students that are coming to the St. Louis region who are in need of targeted programs for developing proficiency in English and also providing support for the trauma that they experience, there's 2 options. So do think that we'd probably be getting a significant number of those students. And when you also think about housing stock, we've got some affordable housing stock in the community. We're perfectly positioned to support those students. So we added 25 new positions to the budget. A lot of that is funded through federal dollars, ESSER dollars that the Biden administration had approved. Of those 25 positions that we added, 18 of those positions are some type of interventionist. We knew that supporting students' social emotional learning was going to be absolutely critical. And that's been proven to be the case. So great work to Dr. LaChance and the Human Resource Department for onboarding some amazing people. Mike's been with the district for a long time, but he came into his role as assistant sup for HR last year, which is the absolute worst time to come into human resources when you're dealing with a nationwide and a worldwide pandemic. The number of tough issues that Mike has had to deal with, I've just never seen anything like it. He just always stays calm and respectful. He's so process driven and organized. I'm just thankful to have him on the team because really what it allows me to do is at the end of the day, after Mike has all done the work, it's either a yes or a no. And so I appreciate Mike's work and his leadership all the way throughout the pandemic. So we've onboarded more than 60 staff members this year. And when you think about the people that we brought on board last year, with half of our students being fully virtual, all of the teachers that we brought on last year, this is really like their first year because the virtual realm last year is completely different from what we're dealing with this year. Want to share another video from another new staff member that we have on board. It's actually a new position that we created. It's the Director of Secondary Education. So we created a new position this year, the Director of Secondary Education, because what our data shows us is at the early childhood, elementary level, a lot of our data is moving in the right direction in a pretty significant manner. At our high school level, the level of student engagement at our high school, despite the best efforts of so many, there's a lot of students that are struggling academically as well as socially, as well as with social emotional. So with the staff that we have in central office, It's a pretty lean team, so I'm the superintendent, Dr. LaChance is over HR, Julie Hahn is over student services. Dwight Lindhorst has been the CFO for the last 5 years now. Doug Gray is over communications. Former student, Marion principal Deneen Stewart is over CNI. Got a pretty lean team with Mike Smith, who was a Marvin principal, is now over operations. To do the work of keeping the district moving while also placing an additional focus on the secondary level, specifically the high school, it was a lot. So in the budgeting process, we created a new position, Director of Secondary Ed, with their sole focus being on the high school and the 2 middle schools to get the academic performance moving in those spaces. The focus of year 1 is the high school. So we were able to onboard somebody that's well known throughout the region. His name is Dr. Bruce Green. So Dr. Green has significant experience as the principal of high schools in St. Louis Public, as well as in Hazelwood. He's the principal of Hazelwood Central High School. And then for the last 5 years, he was the assistant super over all the secondary building, over all the high schools in the Hazelwood School District. We were able to attract Dr. Green to the district, and he's gotten off to a great start as the Director of Secondary Ed. One of the challenges that Dr. Green is working with the team at the high school, with Dr. Haywood, the new principal, with the assistant principals, teacher leaders, and so on. One of the challenges they're leaning into is the impact of social media on student learning. So I'll pull up this video for Dr. Green that's going to talk a little bit about that.
Hello, my name is Dr. Bruce Green, and I am the Director of Secondary Education for the Ritenour School District. We are not yet at a full return to normal life in our schools, and we are reminded of this on a daily basis. For the past few weeks, we have received many calls and emails from parents and caregivers who are very upset or angry. This shows that the stress of the pandemic has taken a toll on all of us. Our current reality is that we are at a reacclimation period for our schools. When we started the school year, it had been 18 months since many of our kids have been in our classrooms. In many ways, we are teaching students how to do school all over again. We did anticipate some challenges with our students returning to the school environment. We knew that some of our students would need to relearn how to socialize and interact appropriately and relearn expectations in our classrooms and on the school bus. That is why we have been working hard to provide additional educational and social-emotional resources for all of our students. Many of these challenges have been fueled by social media. We know that social media and electronic communications have taken a larger role in our students' lives since the start of the pandemic in March of 2020. The persona kids are creating in the virtual world is often very different from reality. In some cases, building and maintaining these virtual identities is interfering with their focus on learning. Our district has added 25 additional positions district-wide to help our students socially, emotionally, and academically as they transition back to the school setting. Please reach out to your child's school if you need any support. We have a resilient community, and we will work hard to navigate these challenges together. Thank you.
So just a little bit about what that looks like and sounds like every day. We believe that students have lived in somewhat of a fantasy with the low level of in-person contact. Students are creating these personas for themselves on social media, and now I'm sitting next to those children that I was communicating with through social media, in some cases inappropriately. We've got to focus on digital citizenship in the district to make sure that kids are making good choices online. The bottom line is that we just need more supervision of students' choices on social media, and it's something we're working with every single day. So teaching and learning is the #1 focus. Keeping kids healthy is a huge focus. And this reacclimation period has been more than we thought it would be. And that is the reason why we call that self-care day on Monday. It's gotten a whole lot of attention. So just a little bit about Ritenour being a leader with the self-care day, and I credit the Ritenour. It wasn't my idea. It was the Ritenour leadership team's idea to call a self-care day. And we just as a team agreed that was the right thing. And we ran with it. Since we called that self-care day, we announced it a couple weeks back. There's been nearly 10 districts in the region that have announced plans for self-care days. And there's been a couple of colleges and universities that have done the same thing. Now, what it looks like is going to be a little bit different. Like the school district of Clayton is just calling off the entire Thanksgiving week. So it's usually Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday are off. In the name of self-care, they made the announcement this week that they're just going to call off all of those days, as did the Ferguson Florissant School District, I believe, and then Special School District took a self-care day on Monday as well. It's this reacclimation that is stressing staff to a great extent, and people needed a break. So what that self-care day looked like. So we all felt all the staff. So the staff needed the support to make sure they were at their best to support kids. You know, kids and families are bringing the needs in. In many cases, they're pretty dysregulated. There's stuff going on in the community. There's stuff going on social media. And as an adult, you know, just to continue having the next issue teed up one after another is great. And so we heard that from our staff. We were responsive. And on Friday, when we stood it up, we offered some strategies, some self-care strategies for staff members to use. Wasn't a situation where they had to report back, what did you do and tell me what you did. It wasn't that situation. It was, nobody knows you better than you. Here are some strategies that you can use during your time away and help us to be better together for kids when they return. And got a lot of great media coverage around that. So there was an NPR story that was done. Channel 5 did a piece on it, as well as did Channel 4. The idea, we read a lot around self-care and mindfulness and wellness and so on. But it was actually the new superintendent of Springfield, Missouri Public Schools. Her name is Granita Latham. She came from the Houston Independent School District. Springfield, Missouri Public Schools called a self-care day about a month ago. And I just thought, that's a good idea. If ever we get to a point, that's something the team should stick around. And it did come up. It came up 2 weeks ago, and we went ahead and did. We don't have other self-care days scheduled in the calendar. It's not like, okay, we've got 2 self-care days scheduled in March or anything like that. We just said, you know, if we're going to operate in a know better, do better mentality, as we listen to families, as we listen to staff, as the need arises, we might make this decision again with the support of the Board of Education. So we've got great things coming up to look forward to. The start of the winter athletics season was Monday, was November 1st. So we've got about 500 student athletes at Ritenour High School that are getting back into the mix of all the winter sports. And we believe that athletics and sports help to cement the connection to school. So just very excited that kids are going to have a greater connection to school to keep them engaged. That's what it's meant. Sorry. And I can answer any questions you might have.
So you know, Ritenour is not the only school district that's kids are having issues. Is there a lot of communication between all the districts on all that? And does Ritenour seem like there are extra challenges that you guys are having, do you feel, or?
Yeah, no, I think we do. So every Wednesday morning at 9 every week, there's a meeting of all the Ed Plus superintendents. So Education Plus was cooperating school districts in the past. There's 78 school districts that are a part of it. All 78 superintendents meet every Wednesday morning at 9, and we all stay connected around these decisions. We brought this self-care idea to the table, and then that's where other school districts started jumping on. I don't think the issues that we're facing are specific to Ritenour. There's certainly other districts are facing similar issues. One of the things that is different though is the level of media coverage that Ritenour has been facing with this stuff is so much more significant than other districts. And so then I was with Allie Corey on Friday and then with Kate from NPR on Friday as well. And I said, you know, Ritenour's been getting a whole lot of media coverage. Like, do you know where Hazelwood is? Do you know where Ferguson Florence is? Do you know where these other places are? I can give you a map, you know. And it was Allie Corey from Channel 5 that just said, the social media in your community is just so active, it's low hanging fruit. That's how media works right now, right? So they've got people that are just out scanning community social media pages all day. And so the moment that a parent says, truthful or not, hey, did you all hear about this? Then 10 minutes later, you've got a reporter calling. And so that is the big trigger. So like what we're dealing with is not unique to what other districts in the region or across the country are dealing with. But what is unique to Ritenour is just the amount of social media traffic and the fact that there's reporters that, whether it be the Overland Citizens Neighborhood Watch, the Rock Road Times, I grew up in Overland Neighborhood Watch, Ritenour Moms, that's what's different about Ritenour. It's what's driving a lot of this media attention.
I guess, what is the social media have on the students and their behavior? Probably more negative than positive as these people work now, or bullying, whatever is going on and all of that.
Yeah, I think it's just more active, period. Social media, you know, very rarely do people want to talk about all the great things that they're experiencing, right? So when you think about social media or even Yelp, right? So a Yelp rating, do people always talk about the amazing experience they had in this place or that place, right? So it tends towards the negative. So I think social media generally is pretty salacious and pretty negative. I think there's just a whole lot more engagement in social media from students and parents right now. One of the other challenges that we had, as you may have heard in the media, it's been 2 weeks ago, there was an internet threat at Ritenour High School. And so that got significant coverage. And so that's an interesting story. So that internet threat originated in St. Joe, Missouri. So there's a central high school in St. Joe, Missouri. From a couple of weeks ago, somebody posted an internet threat targeted to Central High School of St. Joe, Missouri. What's happened in a handful of districts is kids are taking that threat that's been out there a couple of weeks and they're just pulling out Central and inserting the name of the school. So that's what a student did. Pulled out that threat that was out there, removed Central, put in Ritenour High School, created significant concern, which is understandable, and then led to the school being evacuated. There are also, again, it's a small number of students that are making very poor choices. They're just looking to create disruption, right? So TikTok, devious licks challenges, it's all about the number of likes. So the number of likes that I can get by seeing a school clear out, the number of likes that I can get by filming a fight and posting it out there. So it's not a situation where kids in schools have become bloodthirsty or wanting to watch fights all day. You talk to some kids, you know, as I've done, what about these fights? Why are people filming them and posting them on their social media page? And the kid will tell you it's because I can get 500 likes for a fight and I only get 25 for me doing a song, right? So it's all about the number of likes. I said, so do kids just watch fights all day on social media? No, you know, we don't want to watch fights any more than Bob wants to watch fights. It's all about the number of likes.
Is there popularity index?
Yeah, it is. So that's what it is, and that's a different way of thinking. And so, you know, in that situation with the internet threat, you know, again, small number of students. We had another student trying to create some disruption. It was about an hour after that threat was posted. Stepped on a milk carton in the cafeteria, made a loud sound, and then students were extremely scared and left the building. So it's kind of like the perfect
Were you
storm.
able to search down and find out where the origin was of that?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's the unfortunate reality. We're about teaching and learning and taking care of kids. But we've had to become also like an investigative unit. Anytime there's an internet threat, We work closely with the St. Anne Police, hand in hand. Anytime a kid is posting an internet threat, we found every one of those kids. And so it's our tech team, it's the detectives from the St. Anne Police Department. We get to the bottom of all of those. And that threat is less than 24 hours before we identify the kid.
1 hour, will they end up having juvenile?
Yeah, so in these,
Juvenile court?
these are significant. So like posting threats, it's beyond school level consequences. So that's where we work with law enforcement.
Oh, it seems to me the topic of our part. I can get lots of visual attention. I can hear one talking, right?
Yeah.
What's different is the response, and I'm assuming the response is the level of threat that students are experiencing. So if you operate on a daily basis at that level of concern and stress, then over the long haul, the whole significant. Significant, clearly significant in interfering with learning, but interfering with health.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does. And so in the situation of so there's popping a milk carton, which is what kids do sometimes. In this time of the pandemic, it meets the definition of a terroristic threat. You know what the definition of a terroristic threat is? More than 30 people have to be in fear of their lives. And so in that situation with that child popping a milk carton, we had 70 students that were running away from the area where the milk carton was popped. And that's a threshold of terroristic threat. And now that child is facing some pretty significant consequences. And we had this conversation of, it's just popping a milk carton, but it's all about thinking about the impact of the choices that people are making. So that's why we're trying to work through our principals and counselors and tell kids and families, be very aware and mindful of the choices that you're making now, because the context is totally different. Because that child could say, oh, I was doing with popping a chocolate milk carton. But we had 3 detectives from our police department. We had 4 SROs. We had about 15 district staff members getting into the videos, spending probably about 6 hours worth of their time to get to the bottom of it over popping the milk carton. But that's what we have to do at this point. For so long.
And when you think about it, I've substitute taught, and I've had to go through the intruder drills, the intruder training, and have the state defense system go off with the kids in the room and so on. This is something that is foreign to everybody in this room. We did not have to do that when we were in school. That is not something, and the biggest issue that hit me was they weren't concerned about some yokel out on the street coming in. They were concerned about a current or former student or a current or former parent who was upset and coming into the building. This is not something that is foreign. It is foreign to us. We didn't have to deal with it, but these kids do on a daily basis.
Right. And it goes back to Jack's comment about people just being dysregulated. You know, good people end up potentially doing bad things when you're in the state of regulation, and that's just when you live in a state of dysregulation over some months. Sometimes people end up making choices they wouldn't normally make, and so then it's how do we respond as a district? So not this Saturday, but the next Saturday, our Board of Education, because you've been seeing boards of education across the country, board members being threatened. You know, some incidents happening at board meeting. We've got 4E's intruder training coming up a week from Saturday for the board, you know, so that board members know how to protect themselves so that they can choose to run, hide, or fight if we do have an armed intruder that makes their way into a board meeting. You know, as a leader, those are all the good and right things that that we need to do to keep staff and students safe, but it's clear that we're caught in an escalation protocol right now, right? So each time that the next thing happens, our response is even more significant. You know, we have 3 SROs at Ritenour High School. We've partnered with St. Anne Police Department to have additional staffing at the high school right now. That's not something that we plan to continue, but the St. Anne Police Department, the officers have been amazing. The goal isn't to have more police officers in school, it's to have more supervisors, more caring adults in the building that can supervise hallways, common spaces, and St. Anne has stepped in and filled the bill. We've got a recommendation that's going to be going to the Board of Education on Thursday night about some additional staffing for safety and security at the high school. And if the board supports it, we'll be moving quickly to stand that up as well.
But I went to school when I did it.
I think back to my elementary school days at New Overland or Marion, particularly New Overland, and it was the sirens had gone off, not because of a tornado, but because of the atomic attack, so you had to get under your desk and cover your head. We all know now that wouldn't have helped a thing being here.
Makes you feel better, but
Yeah, but I mean, to have I've been involved in them, I've been involved in the training of them, where we had a room full of staff members and the active shooter being portrayed was an SRO. And, you know, and that's something that you have to take. Here, this guy is standing right next to you, you're trusting, and all of a sudden, you see a fake weapon come up, but he's lost his mind. You know, fortunately, my son-in-law was in the room to tackle him very quickly with the gun.
Yeah,
So,
the unfortunate reality is, like, when we started this 4E's training, I think it goes back to, so Sandy Hook was 2014, this goes back to about 2015 is when we started 4E's training. You know, it's always a know better, do better situation. The unfortunate reality is anything such as Sandy Hook can happen at any point. People don't want to hear that. And so when we first rolled it out, there were a number of teachers, especially elementary teachers, that were mortified by this. But, you know, it goes back to the idea of we're going to do whatever it takes to keep students and staff safe. And now it's not that people are becoming desensitized. I think instead it's more like, okay, we realize that, yes, this is also our responsibility to do whatever it takes to keep each other safe in the event of an armed intruder.
I really feel for you and Mike and the job that you guys are doing. I can't even imagine it. Do you foresee things changing on the positive side anytime soon?
Yeah, I do. You know, I think you always have to be hopeful. And I think, you know, we have some great days. You know, we've got a lot of great days happening in a lot of our schools. I think all of this has just reinforced the importance of a strong relationship between an adult and a child. When people were in person, were fully virtual, a lot of those relationships were impacted, right? You know, if I don't see a lot of in-person school people for an entire year, my sense of connection to the Ritenour community is impacted. I think as those relationships are rebuilt and repaired, things are going to get better.
And first, I've got a niece that teaches third grade in the St. Louis public school system. And, you know, her class, she said that there was only probably about 5 that showed up on a regular basis virtually. Some she never, ever saw.
Right.
And, you know, so that always comes back to the home. Because, you know, so if they're not, you don't have that home support to get you going, I mean, it's hard enough when they're in person, but it's just that much harder if it's all virtual.
Yeah, you know, that's right, Brian. And that's why we've invested in social workers and counselors, and we have wellness teams that push out into the community. So a wellness team might be a counselor, a social worker, might be one of the SROs that work in our schools, might be an interventionist. The idea of the wellness teams is, especially when we were fully virtual, they were going to homes, making home visits, might have made, you know, 70 or 80 home visits in a week. Because we believe it had to be that combination of virtual learning, but you seeing the face of some caring adults that are trying to connect with you. So it's something that we, you know, strategy that we've continued on. One of the big concerns that, you know, Mike always shares is the impact that all of this is having on the teacher pipelines. You know, Mike shares some data across the entire state of Missouri. The number of college students that are in middle school teacher preparation programs. How many total students across the state, Mike?
last over 4. So we're like, Jack sent me a lead on one from Maryville, so we're hopeful there, but there are very few people interested in those education.
So of all the colleges that have education across the state, it's probably about 20. There's 4 total people that want to be middle school teachers.
Pretty scary because districts are talking about hiring people regardless if they need them or not. Just because they know they will need it at some point. It'll become a staff to get people.
Well, there was challenges in middle school teachers before all this happened.
No, come on, Chris.
Yeah.
That was the most fun you've ever had.
Well, Jerry.
What's- what's-
No, it was good. It was good. Yeah, no, it's good. I agree. But, so the number of teachers and teacher education programs, we're presenting this weekend at the Missouri School Board Conference. It's in Kansas City now. So Mike and I will be traveling with Patricia Clausen is one of our assistant principals at the high school. Beth Davey is a teacher at Overland. She was the Missouri Teacher of the Year in 2018. And we built a partnership with St. Louis University. And so we're traveling with Gary Ritter. He's the Dean of the College of Education there. And then Ryan Wilson is in their admissions office. We work together knowing that there's such an issue with the pipeline of quality talent. It's called the Ritenour Teach and Lead Grow Your Own program, where it starts in 10th grade. Ritenour kids that are high performing, that are interested in being teachers. There's a series of experiences that start in 10th grade. Upon graduation from Ritenour High School, students are guaranteed admission into St. Louis University. Their tuition is fully covered for 4 years. And that's St. Louis University significantly discounting their tuition. And it's the Ritenour Pride and Promise Foundation committing $10,000 per year per student to go against their tuition, room and board. So we're creating our own pipeline of talent. We've got our first 2 students in the Grow Your Own program, Kayla Baker and Darlene Garcia. We're 2021 graduates from Ritenour. They're freshmen at St. Louis University. So we're going to MSBA to present on that new program. We've got 12 kids in the pipeline right now at Ritenour High School that are 10th, 11th, and 12th graders that want to be teachers. Because not only do we need high quality teachers, we need high quality teachers that also have a level of investment in the community. And if you've come up through the Ritenour School District, you've got a level of investment in the community. Because you got to, there's 2 parts to any job. You have to learn the job and you have to learn the community. Well, if you've come from the community, you've already got number 2 taken care of. You just have to learn the job. So we feel really good about this partnership program we've created at St. Louis University. The fine institution of higher learning, if I can say so myself. But yeah, and the master's degree, it's a good place. Yeah. So
You can't escape the Jesuits.
oh no, they're all over. But but you just think about the tuition. Anybody guess what tuition, room and board is at St. Louis University this year?
Before the discount or after?
So without the discount.
28, 30,000.
That's $58,000. Yeah. So 58,000. And so our 2 kids, Kayla and Darlene, they pay nothing. And so
If it's really probably 50% of that.
oh yeah,
After this discount.
the real cost.
The real cost.
Yeah. So St. Louis University from 58, they knocked $30,000 off. We pump $10,000 per student in, and then through grants and scholarships covers all the rest.
Are they somewhat fellow?
So if students are Pell eligible, kids can actually end up on the positive side of this, where they'd have a little bit of money in their pocket to attend conferences and those kind of things.
Thank you, Chris.
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity.
Good job, Chris.
And as I said to the board yesterday, if anybody is interested in helping the Pride and Promise Foundation, we would appreciate you coming to our trivia night on November the 12th, rather than the Maryland Heights Chamber of Commerce, which I just saw on the counter out there. They're having a trivia night as well. So it's, you're more than welcome. Socially distancing applies. The in-restaurant mask rules apply, so that once you're on your way in, but once you sit down at your bubble or table of close friends and family, it's no mask. So you just go out to the website under the Pride and Promise Foundation, sign up, St. Anne Community Center on the 12th.
I'm wondering if that would qualify as a fine commotional.
No.
I'm just being so.
Sure, next week I'll pay it.
Yeah.
No, you set that up. It's a shame that there isn't a way to.
I didn't set it up today with this.
I have no dog in the hunt.
That's what my son-in-law said too. He said, I'm not going because I need to be at the farm.
I'm gonna guess it's Jack.
983. 983.
That would be me.
All right.
Right.
He bought two right at the end. That was 92. Jack. It's in there somewhere. You just gotta find it. Oh, we forgot to tell you, somebody won the pot, Jack. All right.
And then this part of the return, the last part got down to 4 cards. Oh, my.
All right, everybody have a great week. Don't forget